All right, can everybody hear me? All right. Well, I am so grateful and so excited to be here this morning. It is a wonderful blizzard outside, but I also just want to take a minute to say thank you to Pastor Al for giving me the opportunity to share. And also, the reason that I'm up here is to give him a little bit of a break because he's been at he's at professional development courses, right? He's digging deep into his classes, learning how to be a better minister of the word for you. And so that's something that's really desirable in a pastor, by the way. So you need to thank him for doing that. And then, of course, I get the opportunity to dig deep to prepare for this, which is beneficial for me. So I am personally grateful for this opportunity. And I'm very excited because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about. And the topic, of course, is worship. And my main point, I'm going to put it right up front. Worship is critical to our life. It's critical to your life as a Christian. It's critical to our life as human beings. We were actually created for this purpose. And I would also like to say that worship is much, much more than what we just do here on Sunday morning, right? Corporate worship is a very good thing, but this is literally only a drop in the bucket, or a drop in the ocean of what worship really means and what worship really is. And I hope to dig into that really deeply and really quickly today. So we're going to go a little bit academic today. So I hope you're ready to, learn some Hebrew words maybe. And I will promote to you this idea. Worship is one of the two greatest commandments that Jesus himself gave in Mark 12. Now, if you're familiar with Mark 12, you're going, whoa, wait a minute. Did he actually say that? Well, let's see. One of the scribes came up and heard them disputing with one another, and seeing that he answered them well, asked him, which commandment is the most important of all? Jesus answered, the most important is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. That's number one. And the second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There's no other commandment greater than these. So love the Lord your God. Let me ask you a rhetorical question. How do you tell God you love him? Worship, right? That's one of the ways we tell God we love him. So if we're commanded to love the Lord our God, there's an implicit command to worship. The other way that Jesus also says is keep his commandments, right? Obedience is worship. Obedience is love for God. 1 John 5:3, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. So remember that. His commandments are to help you. I don't let my kids just eat all the candy that they want. They want a lot of candy, but I tell them they can't. And it's for their benefit. It's not a burden, although they think I'm a mean guy for not letting them eat all the candy they want, right? So the same thing. God's commandments are not burdensome. They're to help us, whether we recognize it or not. All right, next slide, please. So this is Romans 12, 1 through 2. And I really like how the Passion Translation said this. So this is kind of a paraphrase in modern language, right? Beloved friends, what should be our proper response to God's marvelous mercies? I encourage you to surrender yourselves to God to be his sacred living sacrifices and live in holiness. There's that obedience again. Experiencing all that delights his heart. For this becomes your genuine expression of worship. How we live in obedience to God is a genuine expression of worship. And then, this is very, very important, especially for us today, because we've put worship in a box. Stop imitating the ideals and opinions of the culture around you. I'm going to just say that again. We could probably read that 10 times and it would still be relevant. Stop imitating the ideals and opinions of the culture around you, but be inwardly transformed by the Holy Spirit through a total reformation of how you think. This will empower you to discern God's will as you live a beautiful, satisfying life, perfect in his eyes. Guess what? If you do anything God asks you to do, it's worship. Any act of obedience, any act of faith is worship. So I want to address one really cool thing that was kind of transformative from my understanding of the Christian life. And it's the issue of what is the soul. Jesus says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. What is Jesus talking about? Well, when he's talking about the soul, let me see if see what the things up there. So Jesus in Mark 12, he knew his audience was a Hebrew audience, and he knew that their cultural understanding of the soul was the combination of your mind, your will, and your emotions. So whenever we see soul in the Bible, the automatic cultural understanding is mind, will, and emotions. And then that's housed inside your physical body. So it's very important to understand that God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. God is a spirit. In order to have a relationship with us, he's a spiritual being. He created us as a spiritual being in his image. So the real us, that's us, is spiritual. So this is an important thing to understand theologically, and I'm not going to delve into it too much because it's a whole series of sermons I'm sure a pastor can handle himself. But we are a spiritual being. We have a soul, mind, will, and emotions, and then we're contained in a physical body, right? So when we die, our soul, our mind, will, and emotions, guess what? They remain intact. Who you are as a person is still who you are as a person after this shell gets sloughed off, okay? All right, so if we're going to worship God, we have to worship with all three parts of our soul. Next slide, please. Mind, will, and emotions. So that's what we're called to when we're called to worship. We worship God academically. We can see some logical reasons to worship God. We'll get into that. Will. This is very important. What do you do intentionally? Your decision-making process. You can have all the knowledge about God that you want, but until you decide to do something about it, action-wise, it's pretty much useless. Read James. And then emotions. Emotions is what makes us human. It's what allows us to express love for each other. It's what drives humanity in general. And if you think God doesn't have emotions, you're flat wrong. He created you with emotions because he's passionate about you. And he created us with emotions so that we could have relationships, right? What is a relationship without emotions? You really want to marry Spock? No. Like the Vulcan guy on Star Trek? No, like the emotionless thing makes for a loveless marriage, right? Emotions is everything about what makes us human. All right, so let's dive in, okay? I'm getting excited already. I hope you are. What are the areas, this is a rhetorical question too, what are the areas that you personally, take a self-inventory, are most likely to engage during worship? How can you rebalance your worship to include your mind, your will, and your emotions? So, I'll be personally transparent with you. Growing up, I thought, I just need to know about God. I need to know all of the facts. And I'm going to dig deep into apologetics so that I can argue somebody into the kingdom of God, because I will have all of the facts and evidence to present to them, and I will convince them. And guess how many times that has worked out for me? None. You know, I know that there are scientists who have been convinced for the kingdom of God by seeing scientific evidence. I know some personally. However, most people are convinced for the kingdom of God when they develop a relationship with a real person and they realize that God is a relational being, and they go, this makes sense. Okay? So, if you engage with your will and emotions, now you're closer to a real relationship, which is what it's all about. It's relationships. So let's go on. The Bible has 7 different words that it talks about for worship. The first one is yada, the raised hand. Now, I want to address to you, you guys may or may not know, I'm a singer in the Army band. Okay, so a stage performer. That's my job. When you were talking about stage performing, we actually talk about this. God knows what your human psychology needs to feel better. Did you know that when you raise your hands for more than 30 seconds, your brain automatically starts getting emboldened? It tells your body, I am victorious, I am powerful, I'm awesome, right? And not that we're awesome, but when we raise our hands to God, we're saying that about Him. And you know what? It makes us feel better psychologically. Because guess what? Guess what is the opposite? When you close down like this, you're covering your vital organs and you're saying, I'm vulnerable, I need protection. If you win at a game, it's a universal human constant. Even people that don't see other people do this, blind people even, if they win at something, boom, victory, right? This is victory. It's a human expression of victory. So guess what? If you're feeling down and depressed and you start worshiping God with raised hands, He automatically built into this form of worship what you need to feel better, what you need to get out of that down and depressed feeling. Give it a try. All right, Psalm 9:1. I will yada, worship you with extended hands as my whole heart explodes with praise. I will tell everyone everywhere about your wonderful works and how your marvelous miracles exceed expectations. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little time on raised hands because this was a sensitive subject in my church growing up, okay? So I get the benefit of, in the military, you get to travel around and see a lot of different churches when you're finding a new place to live and a new church to attend. So you see a lot of church culture as you're going through this. And what I've identified is that there's kind of two sides of the house on this, right? There's the side of the church culture house that says, I'm not going to raise my hands because that's out of order, that's wild, and we want good order in our worship. And I understand that, I respect that. And then there's the other side of the fence that says, in order to be spiritual, in order to be a Christian, you have to do this. And if you're not doing this, there's something wrong with you. I would say both of those are wrong. Okay, both of those extremes are wrong. This is about following a biblical thing, not about remember the verse, don't get away from the ideas of the culture. This is what does the Bible say about it. So, in my opinion, I've developed the idea that good order means don't mess up other people's worship or other people's ministry with yours. Okay? But within that set of guidelines, worship. If it's not going to mess somebody else up for you to raise your hands over there, then raise your hands over there. You know, if you're not messing up somebody else's, be very expressive and very free in your worship, even in a corporate context. Now, if you're making a bunch of ruckus and you're like tearing things off the wall and you're doing things that are disruptive in the name of freedom of worship, guess what? You've erred too far on the other side. My opinion, but that's what I feel like I get out of this. I used to think that people who raised their hands in worship were just doing it to show off, to draw attention to themselves, and to say, ooh, I'm so spiritual, I can raise my hands in worship. And you know what it took for me to change my thinking? A relationship with one of those people that I thought was a show-off, and then I realized, wow, this person's heart is solely only for God. I want what you want. Because when you raise your hands, I used to think you were showing off, but now I realize you are amazingly worshiping God, and I am not, and I want that. And I desired that so much I wanted to learn from this person. Okay? Relationships is what will change your thinking. All right, so Isaiah 29:13. Wow, this one slapped me in the face. These people come near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship of me is based merely on human rules they have been taught. How many times does that apply to us in the church? How many times are we worshiping within the context of what we've been taught or what's culturally acceptable within our church? A lot. I am a victim of that. I fall into that. We have these conventions of, oh, we have to do it this way or we have to do it that way. Isaiah 29:13. It's a hammer. So let's put aside the human rules, right? Let's look at see what the Bible has to say about worship. And we're going to keep going on with these other forms of worship. All right, next. Tehillah. This is improvisational or unrehearsed singing or praying out loud or writing. And these are kind of my definitions based on their the book definition. Okay, so this is kind of a little bit of me in the definition too. So just, take it with a grain of salt. This is me trying to expound on what's going on. I think that anything you do creatively when you're thinking about the Lord is this, including drawing, including painting, including composing a poem or a prayer or anything. I think it falls in this creative, improvisational category. This is something that is really cool. Look what it says, Psalm 22:3. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises, Tehillah praises, the improvisational, creative praises of Israel. God is enthroned in our creativity. Why? God's the master creator. And when we create also, it's called recreation. We get to play doing what God already did. That's why it's fun. This should be fun, by the way. This should be recreational because we are creative beings. This is why God's enthroned on the creativity of Israel. All right, Psalm 22:3, good one. Next one, Barak, to kneel and bless. Psalm 95:6, oh come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. This is a very appropriate form of worship. It's not just showing off. This is a submissive to kneel and bless. Almost, I would say in this one, more like swearing fealty to a king. When you kneel and be knighted, and cut some of those old kind of ideas. This is kind of the same thing. I'm blessing you, Lord, with kneeling, not like I'm bowing down in super scared submission that I'm going to get hit over the head with a book or something, right? This is a blessing type of kneeling. All right. Next one, halal, to boast clamorously. Now, this is really interesting that boast has come up a couple of times already in this service. And Sarah's son, I will boast in Christ alone. Pastor Al already talked about it up here, boasting only in Christ. And I think that there's a word here for our church about this type of worship. Now, another definition of this is to boast foolishly or clamorously. And to me, I'm like, oh, foolishly? What are we doing being foolish? But let's look at some of the context of what that means. Nehemiah 12:24. And the chiefs of the Levites, Hashabiah, Sherebiah, and Jeshua, the son of Kadmiel, and their brothers who stood opposite them to praise and give thanks according to the commandment of David, the man of God. So to praise, halal, and give thanks. So I was this is my take on this. I was like, Lord, what is this? What is halal? What is foolish, clamorous boasting? And I almost feel like he gave me a picture. I don't know if it's super biblical, but take it for what it is. I got the picture of two little boys coming out of a movie theater, and they're so excited about what they just watched that they're like, oh my goodness, did you see that part when he did that thing? And then the other guy was like, and then, oh man, and then they ran over there and they did that other thing, and oh, it was so great. Oh man, that was awesome. You've seen kids do this, right? That's what I feel like we should be doing about what God is doing. Oh man, God is doing some awesome stuff. Did you see when he healed that person and they just did the thing? Or when this person was praying, it was so powerful. And it's okay to get clamorous and excited about what God is doing. That's exactly, I think that this is what they were doing. I think they had two lines of dudes standing back and forth, and that they were going back and forth telling God stories and getting all ramped up and excited about it. And it says watch by watch. That means around the clock. This was so important that they did it all the time. Let's get excited about what God's doing. Right? Wow, that's awesome. All right, next one. Tauda, raised hand in agreement, thanksgiving and supplication for an outcome that is not yet manifested or understood. So this is basically saying, thank you, Lord, for what you're about to do. Even if I don't agree with it, even if I don't understand it, I'm thanking you for the outcome that you have, because it's better than the outcome that I have. So this is the one who offers thanksgiving, tauda, as his sacrifice. What do you have to sacrifice? Your way of thinking, your way of doing it. You're saying, God, I want your way, not my way. I always have an idea of how I want things to go. I always have an idea of how I think God's going to do something, and he always does it better. Right? So if you just give it over to him in thanksgiving before you get cemented in your idea of how things are going, it says that glorifies him, that glorifies me. To the one who orders his way rightly, meaning putting God's way first, I will show the salvation of God. Wow, that's some powerful stuff. So when we agree with God before our emotions agree with God, when we engage our mind because we understand now what tauda is, and we make a decision with our will to agree with God before our emotions catch up, guess what will happen? Eventually your emotions will catch up. That's basic human psychology. If your emotions are not yet there, but you do the act, your emotions will catch up eventually. You want to forgive somebody, you have to act in forgiveness first. You have to treat them like they're forgiven. You have to talk about them like you have forgiven them. And then, it might take years, but then your emotions will eventually catch up to the action. Okay? This goes for worship. If you want to worship with your whole soul, with your emotions also, the act has to come first. Okay? Okay. That was a little sidebar. Next, zamar. To sing or play skillfully with instruments or voices in a rehearsed, ordered manner. So this is basically applying your mind and your will part, right? So you're taking the skills that you've developed and you're dedicating those to the Lord. The talents and abilities that are already in you and dedicating them to the Lord. It doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, have to be just with instruments. I think any skill that you've taken time and effort to develop, when given to the Lord, is zamar. Okay? It is good to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises, zamar, to your name, O Most High. That's a good thing, to take skills, develop them, and then use them for the kingdom. I think we can all agree on that. The Bible says it is, so you can agree or not. But next one, shabak, to shout, to make a loud sound, not just a loud sound, but a whole being, uninhibited sound. Now, here's something that I think is very, very sad about our culture, at least American culture. We will do this for football all the time. Goal! Touchdown! Yeah! And we shout, and we get up out of our chair, and we raise our hands up, and we jump, and we're like, yes! My team just won! When was the last time you did that for God? When was the last time you did that? That's a little hitting close to home, right? When was the last time you did that? Now, I'm not asking you to do that here, but I am asking you, go home, go in a closet where it's just you and God, and do what he says. Do this. And if you can't do it alone when it's just you and God, how are you going to expect to do it in an environment that's even open to it like this? You aren't. Going home and doing this in private is super important. It will change your life. Because guess what? If you go home and do this in private, you're admitting to yourself with action, with will, mind, will, and emotion that this is all real. It's a full expression of faith with your full being. That's very important. If you want to worship God, you want to have full being faith, not just an academic understanding, you got to worship God with your full self. Lock yourself in a closet and try these things. I beg you. All right. Go on. I missed the verses. Psalm 63, 3-4. Because your steadfast love is better than life, my lips will praise you. So I will bless, shabak you, as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my praises. We can shout to the Lord. That's great. That's okay. All right, so if you engage with each of these 7 ways, I can promise you, your faith will deepen because you're fulfilling the commandments of God. These are all tools that God gave us to sharpen ourselves in faith. And if we go and we actually engage with the tools and make a willful act out of doing these 7 things, we're going to be fulfilling one of God's primary commandments, which is love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. This is a way you can show God you love him. And guess what? If you've been feeling like, oh man, I need a word from the Lord, or I'm not hearing from God, or I feel so dry, or I feel so down or depressed, what should I do? What can I do? Pastor, tell me, what can I do? What's my way forward? Well, there's 7 ways forward right here that you can do if you are willing to do it. And you don't have to use anybody else to do these. You can go by yourself, lock yourself in a closet, and do all 7 of these. And guess what? I will say this in faith. God will show you a way forward. Absolutely. Because you're doing what he asked you to do. And he's enthroned in those praises. And he will talk to you because you're opening your will to his will and letting him pour it into you. Right? All right, so let's get into some 5 practical steps. I've already kind of given my overview of practical steps. So let's talk about how can we actually do this. So a lot of people are like, okay, Dan, well, this sounds all good, but how do you do this? What does this actually look like? So step number 1 is let's understand with our mind what the goal is. What are we actually doing here? What is the goal of worship? It's to engage our Creator God with our mind, will, and our emotions like a real relationship. If you are leaving your emotions out of your engagement with God, you have a half love. It's not a real relationship. I'm not saying you're not a Christian or that you're not born again. I'm saying you're missing out on the fullness of what God has for you. You need to engage God with all of you are. I would not want to be married to Christy if she was emotionless, if she was just like, yeah, it makes logical sense to stay married to you. I'll be like, well, do you love me? Well, that's not important right now because it makes logical sense to stay married to you. Well, goodness gracious, who wants a marriage like that? No one. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants it to be real. Everybody wants a real relationship, okay? And if she didn't have will, if she was just trapped into the relationship, and she didn't actually want to be there but was trapped, is that much of a relationship either? No. So, maybe God can use this even in your personal life, with mind, will, and emotions, to tell you something about what the quality of relationships should be in your life, with your friends, with your spouse. Okay? Mind, will, and emotions. It's a big subject. And like I said, it kind of changed my philosophy and my understanding of how we are to relate as human beings, as Christians especially. Understand what you're doing. Okay, next one. I like to rabbit trail, I'm sorry. Get over yourself. Boy, don't I need to hear this all the time. Right? Pride and ego, especially in the American male, is really big. Okay? I don't feel like it. I don't get anything out of it. I don't like that style of music. Well, guess what? It's not for you. It's not about you. It's what you give to God. It's not about what you get out of it. It's what you give to it. It's not, I hope I'm not speaking too boldly here, but you know what? I'm speaking to myself in the mirror here too, okay? I hope you don't think that I feel like I have it all together, okay? So when I'm shouting at you, I'm really shouting at myself in the mirror because that's the person I want to become, okay? Is what I'm promoting to you today. I don't feel like it. I don't get anything out of it. I don't like that style of music. Who cares? Who cares? Do the act of worship with your will until your emotions catch up. If it becomes something that you can't live without because your emotions have matched your mind and will and they're focused on God, and then those become matched to his mind, will, and emotions, Then we're following Philippians 2:5, where it says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Right? All right, number 3. Prepare in advance. If the only time you're engaging with deliberate worship is when you walk through the doors of this church, you're going to feel dry. You're going to feel left out. And you're going to feel not that great about it. Okay? I mean, that's just it. If you're only getting it one time a week, that's not enough. We're starving. If you only ate food one time a week, you'd be starving. Let's not starve on worship. We need it. Okay? So, in my personal opinion, the most important breakthroughs in praise happen in private. And I'll tell you a story. Not too long ago, like less than 7 years ago, and I've been calling myself a Christian from my youth, from the time I was a small boy, expressed my faith in Christ. But until 7 years ago, I would refuse to pray out loud. In public or in private. I would refuse to pray out loud. And I was driving in my car, and I was like, okay, there's no one around to see me. Why do I feel so awkward about opening my mouth and praying out loud? And eventually I had to decide, well, do you believe this or not? Do you believe it enough to act on it and to say something out loud? Or is this just going to be a mental exercise? Oh yeah, I'm academically a Christian, but I'm not willing to do or to speak anything about it. And you know what? When I finally decided that I was going to pray out loud in my car, driving to work, as a basis of routine, it was real awkward. I'm not going to lie. It was real awkward at first. And I'd get 2 sentences out, and I'd be like, okay, well, I feel awkward. And you know what? Over time, I got better. Over time, I started praying longer and longer. And then over time, an hour would go by, because that's about how long my commute was, and I would be praying out loud for an hour. And you know what? It was transformative, because it was an act of faith that God did. Okay? So I encourage you, I exhort you, I beg you, do it. Do it with your will until your emotions catch up, and God will meet you. Prepare in advance. All right, this quote I really, really like. Oh, it's not in there. This quote I really, really like. I'm just going to tell you. Until praise in private is continual and free, praise in public will be dominated by fear, self-consciousness, and discomfort. Your praise in private is where you find the freedom. And until your praise in private is free, your praise in public is going to be very dominated by self-consciousness and fear. And you're going to be thinking, oh, other people are thinking about me right now. What do I look like? Or, oh, I don't want to cause a ruckus. Or if you're thinking those things, you're not in the room worshiping. That means that Satan's already got you separated from the herd. Okay? So if you find yourself here worrying about what other people are thinking of you, no one's thinking of you. And if you are thinking of somebody else, then you're wrong too, and you need to focus on God. Okay? No one is thinking about you. You just think about Jesus and do what he tells you to do. Amen. Right? Prepare in advance. That can only happen if you prepare in advance. And you decide, guess what? I don't care what other people think about me. I'm going to do the act regardless. All right? Let's go to the next one. Number 4, make a willful effort to experiment with and engage with all 7 forms of this worship. These are tools. You have to decide that you're going to use the tool in order for the tool to be effective. It doesn't do anything if you leave it in the toolbox. You have to take it out and turn the wrench, right? And if it makes you uncomfortable, and I'm going back and back and back on this, okay? Because this is me preaching to myself. If it makes you uncomfortable, see you, but God, get over yourself and try it, and take a risk for spiritual gain. You know what taking a risk for spiritual gain is called? Faith. You want to grow your faith? Take a risk for spiritual gain. If it makes you uncomfortable, do it at home in private, just you and God, and grow your faith. I promise you, it will grow your faith. The Bible says it will. All right. Next one, don't hold back what he asks. If you hear God's voice saying, hey, raise your hands, and you're like, no, I'm too uncomfortable. Or, hey, you should kneel right now. And you're like, people would think I'm a weirdo. No one else is. Or, hey, take off your shoes. Or, hey, sing louder. Or, hey, sing something other than the words on the screen. Sing a new song. Sing a different song. Just make noise. And you're like, nah. And if you talk yourself out of it at that moment, you probably just missed an opportunity to practice hearing God's voice. And if you miss the opportunities to practice, how will you get good at it? You know, take the opportunity when God tells you, hey, something small, because if you get good at hearing his voice over here, maybe you'll hear his voice over here also, which is where you've been craving, like, hey, what should my next job be? Or who should I marry? Or some of these other things that we consider bigger deals. If you're faithful in the small things, faithful in the big things, right? Hear his voice in the small things. It's a small thing. This is that we are created to worship. And anything that you do as a creative human being is worship. So I know this is probably moving a little quick, but we're going to take a little time to actually implement one of these. So I'd like to call the worship team back up, Harmony. And what we're going to do is I've taken the liberty of asking Harmony and Christy and Joseph Cha didn't even know about this, but they have contributed to Tehillah form of worship. And we're going to create a new song for the Lord using inspirations that the Holy Spirit has given to this congregation. Now, the reason that's important is because God has a message for you. God has a message for this church, and when we get together and we tell God stories back and forth, that builds relationship, right? That builds the kingdom, that builds faith. In fact, I don't think I have it up there. Revelation 19:10 says, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So when I tell a testimony of Jesus, and when you tell a testimony of Jesus or what God has done in your life, you are literally making a prophetic statement and calling forth the potential in somebody else to become more like Jesus. You are engaging their faith and turning them more toward Jesus in a prophetic way. And what is prophecy? It's calling forth God's best potential for someone, right? So when we engage with this, so we've got a couple of on the worship slides, Tim. If you go back to the worship slides, we're going to click through these really fast so you can see what they are, and then we're going to set them to music. And it's okay if you sing along. It's okay if you don't sing along. It's okay if you sit there silently. It's okay if you want to engage in whatever way God tells you. All the way at the end of the slide deck, it's like the last 4 slides. Here it comes. And we're going to just set them to these words. And we're going to experiment with what God has laid on this congregation. These are words that came to this congregation. Father, we want this to be dedicated to you, Lord. Pray that you would cast out fear, cast out inhibition right now, Lord. Your words, your spirit, and engage with you, with our mind, will, and emotions, Lord. Lord, I pray that we will remember praiseworthy phrases back to you because you've laid them on the hearts of this congregation, Lord.
You're all
The spirit of praise. So if you have a garment of heaviness on you, we've got 7 tools to exchange it for a spirit of praise. Exchange that garment right now. He can give us clean clothes and a new name. Loving Lord, reveal to my heart how great faith comes to the humble. You know it takes humility to lock yourself in a closet and raise your hands to the Lord. It takes humility to open your mouth and say, Jesus, you are Lord. I'm saying it out loud even though no one else can hear me. I'm going to humble my ego, I'm going to humble my pride and be unreserved for just a moment so that you can build my faith. Faith comes to the humble. You're all I have, you're all I have, and all I need. Let's sing this. You are all I need. You are all I need. Sing it to Jesus. You are all I need. Oh, you are all I need. Jesus, you are. You are all I need. You are all I need. Amen. Amen. You are all we need. And you've given us everything we need to be able to draw close to you. Because you didn't draw far from us. You never left us. And you've given us the tools we need to draw close to you, Lord. Give us the boldness. Give us the will to engage every part of us with these tools, Lord, so that we can grow in your grace and mercy to the glory of the Lord Jesus Christ as we spread his kingdom on this earth and fulfill your greatest commission to love others, to love your neighbor as yourself. That second part of your commandment, Lord. Let us live in that this morning. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Hallelujah.